Jan
Here.
and Lisa, not here, and myself.
Have we got a quorum?
We do.
We do.
By the finest of just that much.
So number 3 is election of chair and vice chair for the committee for 2024.
Mr. Chairman, or Mr. Vice Chair, I would like to nominate Mr. Stenberg for chair.
I'll second that.
There aren't seconds, it's a nomination.
Oh, it's a nomination.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
So if you had another nomination, you do it now.
So then we do
You
the,
ask if there are any more nominations.
any more nominations?
One more time you have to ask.
Any more nominations?
I move that nominations cease and a unanimous ballot be cast for Mr. Stenberg.
Second.
Okay, so be it then,
You
all
have to
right?
call all in favor.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I didn't know we were that
We're gonna
formal.
get you there yet.
For that part of it. What about vice
I
chair?
make a motion to take Jan as vice chair, or nominate Jan as vice chair.
All right, and I'll second that.
There's no second.
There's no second. There's no second.
I made a mistake, it's a nomination.
Okay, so then,
Is there any more? Yes.
any more nominations? Any more nominations? Any more nominations? All in favor?
No, I make a motion to end the nominations and make a motion to appoint Jan as vice chair of the TAC.
Okay,
For second?
sounds good.
Second.
So be it.
So be-
All right,
You have to ask all in favor.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh,
Opposed?
Motion carried.
Motion carried.
okay.
All right, I didn't know we were that formal for
Oh,
that
we
part
have
of
to
it.
be, we have to. We're an
Okay.
official designated committee of the council, and so we do have to follow Robert's rules and appropriate whatever.
Yeah, I knew that for the other parts.
Burp, you have to say, excuse me.
I knew that for the other parts, I didn't know for that. Okay, number 4, approval of the agenda.
I would move to approve the agenda, Mr. Chairman.
Lambert, second?
Any discussions on it? All in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Motion carries. Approval of the minutes from October 26, 2023, TAC meeting.
Lambert makes a motion to accept.
I would second, I have a question though.
Oh,
I would second your motion.
All right, any discussion?
I just want to ask,
who's that?
in the minutes, I'm only asking, I did not, there, it says, committee comments. It says there weren't any. I didn't go back and check our meeting, but are you sure? Whoever drafted these, Crystal? Do we note any comments for committee? Or members? I know I'm putting you on the spot.
I think we done all our comments during the meeting.
Fair enough.
There was plenty of them then,
I'll
but
go
I
with that.
don't
I just-
recall any at the end there.
I don't recall any at the
That's
end.
fair enough.
But I
Okay.
can always go double check after the meeting.
Don't worry about it. I was just curious.
Thank you.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
I,
Against? Carried. Financial reports, 2023 year-end summary.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
So you have the financial summary in the report. I won't go line by line, but I'll just highlight that similar to last year, it is a little bit of an estimate. Some of the things that we have, like our third-party contract billing, does typically, by the time that we're releasing this packet, we don't have all the verifications done. Some of our fuels haven't been billed to us yet, so we do make some estimates, although as they continue to come in, we're finding that our estimates are actually pretty close. So we feel like the numbers reflected in here are going to be pretty representative of how the year is going to turn out. What I did want to do is highlight the year summary in a memo. I included that in the packet as well. So I'll go through a little bit of that. The revenue, we were pretty close on what we were expecting. We budgeted a little over 150,000. We came in short about 10,000. We did have some gains in our other, which is like interest on some of our finances, so we do get some there. We just assume that we'll be getting all of the state and federal grant that we are expecting, which is typical. From an expenditure standpoint, we had some great savings. We also had some ones that went over. I'll highlight the main ones. So fuels, we were significantly lower. We saved almost $50,000 from what we had estimated and budgeted. Big piece of this is the reductions that we did midsummer with discontinuation of Pine River. That's a lot of fuel that is saved by not going up to Pine River on a daily basis, as well as a significant amount of the fuel going out through the county routes. So reducing those, that's where a lot of the fuel savings is going to be. You're not going to see a ton of the difference in the Brainerd-Baxter area for fuels. We had a little, you'll see in here, I also highlighted the average fuel rate. We actually went up in 2023 compared to 2022. So goes to show that we did save quite a bit, even beyond the 50,000 kind of shown here. The other piece I'll highlight, or the other two pieces, repairs. We had some pretty significant repairs. It's more closer to the first half of the year. We had some pretty big breakdowns. Part of this was a result of some issues that we had with Blue Sky failing to perform preventative maintenance on the vehicles. That has since got significantly better with the hiring of their third-party manager, on-site manager that's really taken the maintenance and gotten it all resolved. And we had months where there was $25,000 of repairs in a single month, and I believe November was about $2,000. So significant improvements on maintenance. But we're hopeful that continued work with our preventative maintenance will continue to help lower those costs for us. The other issue is the aging fleet. As we continue to have troubles getting the new buses to replace our older buses, we're going to continue to have issues having to bring them into the shop and get them repaired on a regular basis. So hopefully soon we'll be getting new buses that will be able to replenish some of our fleet, and that'll also help our repair budget. And then finally, the third-party contract, again, savings there, mostly attributed to reduction of the services with Pine River and Crow Wing, saving some of our operating hours that way. So that's where you're going to see some of those savings. Let me see here if there was other pieces on that. So that was kind of the summary of the expenditures. So boiling it all down on our total revenue versus total expenditures, we're expecting actually a surplus of the transit system of almost $30,000, which is incredible for us. At least in my opinion, we started the year budgeting nearly $70,000 deficit, and through not only the changes that we did, focused on operations, getting improvements on our maintenance, we were able to flip what we were expecting a $70,000 deficit into over a $20,000 surplus. So I really want to put kudos out to Crystal and the group over there to really turn that year around, because obviously the conversations we were having at the beginning of the year were less than optimistic and rosy. So we went through an awful lot of changes, but it turned out the way we were hoping. Ridership, as you can imagine, with the changes that we did have some declines in ridership overall. We lost about 15% of our riders. Some of them would have been Pine River. A significant amount is Crow Wing. Baxter did lose a chunk of it. I highlight kind of the different partners we have. So Brainerd, we lost about 9% of our riders from 22 to 23. I'm guessing most of that is attributed to the increase in fares. However, even though we increased fares from $1.25 at the beginning of the year to where they're at now with $3, only losing 10% is still a benefit for us. We're now still paying for our portion of the service. If you can just quick do math that way of, we increased our fare rate over 100%. We basically at least doubled our fare rate, but we only lost 10% of our ridership. So that's significant for us. Baxter, similarly, they went a pretty significant increase from 2.25 to 7. Obviously, they lost quite a bit more ridership with almost 19 or 20% of their riders. but the balance is still they're making more in revenue, which is what we needed to do with those changes. Crowing is obviously very significant. They lost 24% of their riders. We still have some more analysis to do as we finalize some of the ridership reporting and some of the billing. But what we're really finding is the crowing riders, our goal was to maintain as many of the subscription riders. That was a significant part of the crowing ridership. We were hoping to maintain a lot of those riders by the system that we set up. We found that the increase in the fare was a big reason for why a lot of them also started to find alternative means. So like the St. Francis children from Pequot Lakes began to do things like ride sharing with parents and stuff like that. So they are no longer riding the transit. We are having very few riders, maybe even one a day from Pequot. Crosby, there is still St. Francis children riding the bus, but we had as it stands right now, we don't know if that's going to continue into the next year. We've also seen a pretty significant decrease in the productive alternative riders as well. So Crowing's had some troubles with the changes, and I'm not sure if we'll be able to turn it around and start growing that, but it's going to be something that we continue to analyze and have discussions with not only our staff and the contractor, but with the county as well. And then obviously Pine River, the difference there, but with their service ending on July 14th, we expect that. So again, going through, summarizing 2023, inflation continues to be a challenge. We haven't really gotten a lot of relief from fuel as well as oils and the things that we need to for repairs. It's likely those things are going to remain higher. Things like wages for repair shops, those are not going to be going down. So I'm guessing the costs that we're paying for repairs now are probably going to be the repairs that we're going to be paying for in 2024 and 25 and moving forward. Obviously, we all are very aware of the big changes that we went through this year. We did have the ridership decreases, but we've also seen some signs that we are going to start recovering riders too. We're getting new customers each month. That's shown in some of our reporting that we do have new customers riding the bus on a monthly basis. So we do see that there's an opportunity that we're going to continue to grow ridership from where the drops have been. And then the same thing for Blue Sky. We really started the year rough. Without a third-party manager kind of reining in their operations, we were having issues with maintenance. We were having issues with professionalism from bus drivers as well as the dispatchers. We were having issues with call answer percentages, a lot of performance issues. When they brought in their third-party manager, we really saw a lot of positive increases on all of those measures. We even just received one report on our call answer percentages, which was over 99%, which was the highest that Crystal had said she'd ever seen. So they've really turned it around on their operations now. I'm sure she'll highlight this later, but they're going to be going through some changes themselves. So hopefully they're able to maintain that same level of service, but it'll be something that we monitor very closely. But again, second half of the year was significantly better for that group. But again, I just want to highlight that when we put it all together, we really do feel like 2023 was a really great year for us, considering where it was starting, being able to implement all of the changes that we did as quickly as we did to avoid the issues that we were forecasting and turn the year around from a deficit into a surplus. I thought it was a very successful year for our group overall. And with that, I will open up to any questions on the summary or financials.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
may I ask a question?
Yes, Jeff.
With Baxter increasing their fares from $2.25 to $7, which is over 3 times, it's over 3 times. They lost ridership, I think everybody knows, because of that. Mm-hmm. And is there a consideration we might make to, sure, the revenue seemed that they captured more revenue, but the goal here is to provide service to people that need a ride. Would we be something in a position, maybe where we get more analysis in the next few months, to suggest to them to, if a bus is gonna be operating in Baxter, the goal is to get as many people on it as possible, or as many people using it that can afford it. If we were to say, can you bring that down to a more manageable amount, you think the difference would work out, or we could make that recommendation maybe next year, or later this year, if we see the numbers working out, and maybe they could pick up more people, still get a significant revenue, with say a $5 a ride instead of $7? That's something we might want to consider.
That is something that I'll be considering as part of, as we review everything after the 6 months we've been talking about, and again, after this new year, when we get some of our year-end reporting kind of finalized too, we are going to take a real hard look at how the ridership has changed versus the revenue they're generating versus the expenditures that we're really seeing with these changes, which from a Brainerd Baxter standpoint really shouldn't change all that much because their service really hasn't changed outside of the fare. So we'll be able to do a better comparison of where that has landed in the last 6 months, and if there's different changes that we could potentially make, if that's a fair decrease potentially. The other part of that will be an item that's coming on here is the RFP and what proposals we're going to receive. That'll be something that's also on our mind as we look at that in the next few months. Is we might wait until we see some of those proposals before we make any fare change recommendations as well. But a few things that are kind of floating in my mind right now, but we need to do a little bit more analysis before we can put together a better recommendation. But it is something that is definitely on the table.
Okay. May I ask another question unless somebody else has something?
Go ahead, Jeff.
Okay. This is more, maybe a kind of a comment, but I see the county has, looking at their hours they operate in Crosby and Pequot, it's very limited compared to what it was, and I mean, I understand the position they were in. I have a hard time criticizing the county for cutting back in service, because the way I looked at it, if they're gonna start levying taxpayers to pay for the county bus, then how do you say no to somebody who's paying taxes to pay for the bus, who lives in Emily or Garrison, and there's virtually nobody but one or two people living there that need a ride, and we're gonna send this gas guzzling big old bus out there to pick them up and bring them where, and then bring them back. I mean, everybody wants transit, but it's not something that's going to be essentially able to be provided to everyone. And as soon as you start levying, that's where the rub comes in. You say, you're paying taxes for this, but we can't serve you. So that's why I can see why the county did what they did and what our transit system recommended to them. However, when we look at what's going on there, they have lost ridership. I don't think it's so much because of the fare, but because of the lack of service. I think that was made evidently clear by the people who were willing to pay the fare, but just didn't have a bus coming that was had been picking them up. So are we gonna look at that aspect of it too, regarding what we just talked about with Baxter?
Yes, sir. That's our intent, is after, again, a good 6 months of seeing some real numbers, and taking away some of the assumptions that we had a year ago when we started putting these recommendations together. Once we have those real numbers, we're going to be able to craft maybe a better recommendation for the county board, and potentially some options, whether that's a fare decrease but keeping the service as it is, changes to the service but keeping the fare where it is. If any changes are warranted, we'll put together some options for them to consider, but we'll base those on real numbers from the last 6 months of actual service.
Okay. You know, Mary, you may remember back when the whole county bus started, how you and I, we were kind of usurped by our, at that time, council president when a steering committee was formed, and how they never notified the public they were going to be meeting, and we found out at the last minute, and you and I showed up to that. And that got very heated, as you may recall. And whatever the catalyst was behind the whole county bus coming on board to join with the city and form a one county city bus service, it was odd because I remember the big concern of this transit committee for the city of Brainerd was make sure that the service we're providing to the riders in Brainerd doesn't start to decrease because now we're operating a county bus. And so this is all, it's all coming full circle in many respects on how this is working out. And I'm not saying the service is suffering because of the county bus, but that was the biggest concern we had. They had 3 buses, if I'm not mistaken, they were going to get to operate in the county. And we thought, well, what if it picks up so much in the county that we're taking buses that are operating in the city and using them in the county, having the people in the city getting less service than they were already been provided with. It was really kind of an odd way to look at it. But we were representing the people of Brainerd at that time who were riding the bus that had been in operation for many years. So it's just kind of I'm not really asking a question here. I'm just kind of making reference to how things have played out over the last 25 years. And it's interesting to see how things have either progressed or regressed in some respects. So that's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
if I may, first of all, maybe just kind of a little bit of a, not necessarily rebuttal, but different point of view from Jeff. I really believe we should stay out of whatever Baxter and Crow Wing County choose to charge or the routes they choose to have. Unless we're prepared to finance them, I think the decision has to be theirs. And I believe that they are equally concerned about ridership, but I believe they make a conscious decision that they are not going to subsidize it. And frankly, I think that hopefully is also Brainerd's position. So I think both the county and Baxter have done a good job, and I'm glad that they're clear-minded and clear-eyed on it. But I had a question for you, Jesse. Do you get reimbursed at all from the contract for all the work and oversight that you do of the current contract provider?
From Blue Sky, no, we don't.
You get nothing.
Correct.
I wonder if it's a consideration, and maybe not. I'm not suggesting it is, just throwing it out, that in the new contract, we add a line that says, depending, it kind of identifies some of the things you've had to ride herd on here recently, there would be reimbursement to you from the third-party provider. Just take it out of their bottom line. If it was in the contract and they bid on the contract, they'd have to accept it. You know, it seems to me you're spending an awful lot of time on that.
That's part of our job, is to make sure that they're falling in line with the contract, right?
But is it part of my job as a taxpayer to pay for it? Or is it part of the contractor's responsibility to pay for it? All I'm asking is that you think about it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments for the financial report? Moving on to unfinished business. No unfinished business. We'll go to new business. Approval, request for proposal, the RFP for the third-party contract services. I believe you had 15 minutes for this,
Yes, sir.
or
Well,
whatever.
we'll see if I need all 15, but I will, we'll see how the discussion goes. As everybody is aware, and we referenced, we are running through the end of our contract mid-year this year at the end of June with Blue Sky Transit. Part of that process is beginning, what we're presenting here is the request for proposals that we would solicit out to vendors for the upcoming next 3-year contract. We've attached that. I guess the contract would begin, just highlighting that, July 1st of this year and then extend through June 30th of 2027. Attached to the packet here is the proposed specs. Generally, they're about what they have been in previous versions of that. I'm going to highlight a few of the big changes that we did. We did obviously change the dates, updated for the next 3-year term. We did update the operating hours that reflect the changes that we made in 2023. So the reduction of, or the elimination of Pine River and the reduction of Crow Wing County service. We did reflect those operating hour changes in the request for proposals so they understand about what they're bidding on for operating hours and the mileage with that. The other big piece that we updated here is penalties for non-performance. So as referenced here, they had a lot of trouble in the first half of the year, and something that Crystal and I, as well as TAC member Chezak, we've had some discussions about where the current contract and the request for proposals has for liquidated damages is very difficult to concretely assign dollar amounts to levels of non-performance. It's in there, but it's very difficult for us, for instance, if somebody were to challenge it, for us to be able to back up exactly how those numbers are derived. So this is something that I wanted to prioritize as part of this next 3-year contract term, of making this a little bit more concrete of what measures of non-performance, how it's measured, and exactly what the penalty would be for non-performance. So to Mary's point about staff having to invest time into training, it's not our job to do what we're hiring them and paying them to do. When they fail to meet the measures of the contract, we have assigned dollar amounts for each thing. For instance, I believe in here, let me pull it up really quick.
Page 17.
Thank you. For instance, if they fail to provide Crystal with the reports that they are required to provide her on a daily basis, each time that comes up, it's $50 per occurrence per month, per occurrence per month. And that's really a penalty because she's going to have to invest time to really go chase that down and get those reports. There's some other pieces. One thing that we've had issues with is inappropriate driver behavior. And obviously it's the job of their manager to follow up with that and address that and come up with a resolution and solution. But again, that's a real cost for us when a driver behaves in an inappropriate manner and potentially costs us ridership because of that behavior. So we have assigned a dollar amount to that. If every time that comes up where they're dealing with the public and they have inappropriate behavior, we are going to penalize $100 per occurrence. And again, this is because that loss of ridership is a real cost to us. Same thing with the call rates. Now they're a lot better than they were before, but we were seeing call rate issues in the 70s and 40s, even before that. And again, that's rides that we're not answering phone calls and people aren't getting those rides. It's costing us real dollars by not providing those rides. So because that's costing us dollars, we want to make sure that they understand that has to be addressed through here. And we address that with essentially a sliding scale of a penalty based on what we're seeing for call answer percentages, because those are real dollars when those rides don't happen. So that was a really big change that we made in here, was crafting that to be able to address those issues a little bit more concretely when they do come up. Now, I'm very hopeful that their operations have improved greatly, that should they have the next contract, that many of these things will not be a concern. But now we do have a much better avenue to address these if need be. One thing that we've talked about, there's so many different situations that come up. So there is a kind of a generic thing that essentially if there's any failure of the operator to follow the rules of the contract, really it's kind of a generic, any other failures that aren't in here, performance or non-performance measure, any of that, there is a penalty there. So it's kind of a catch-all for just about anything that we can't think of and put in a table. So we're trying to address about any possibility that we would come up with, that if we're going to continue to have issues with with an operator, we have a dollar amount that we can assign to it and pull that off of the billing. Now, again, it's not intended that we want to use that as punishment. We really want them to be a responsible operator and operate in the way that our contract says we want you to operate. That is the goal. We use this as a tool. If we just can't work with you to address these concerns, we have a measure of remedying that and making ourselves whole with that. So again, it's not intended to be a punishment, but we have that avenue if we just have trouble getting the movement we need to see if there's non-performance. So with that, those are the main changes that we have in this proposal compared to the other ones. The timeline that we're proposing here is, should the TAC approve this, we'll go ahead and get this thing published as of a week and a half from now, Saturday, February 3rd. We're planning to publish in not only the Dispatch, but we want to get it in the Star Trib. We want to try and get it in one of those larger papers that gets a little bit more eyes on it from a national level, as well as our website, wherever else we can publish it. We really want to get a lot of eyes on here. We do have a couple vendors we're going to directly solicit this to and just make sure that they're aware of our request for proposals. So we're going to send that out to a few people as well. We're going to give them really a 2.5 month period to go through this and prepare proposals and have them due in late April. After that, review them and bring them to a TAC committee meeting on May 9th. And the intention of this is with the end goal in mind. We want them, after the TAC meeting, let's just assume that the TAC approves the recommended proposal. We would intend to go to the next council meeting, the second meeting in May 20th. Assuming the council would approve them, that would give them just over a month to essentially get themselves in line and prepared to begin executing the contract at the end of June, the beginning of July, when the new contract starts. In the event we have a new vendor, a new contractor, we wanted to make sure that we allowed enough time for things like background checks, getting any licenses, any insurance lined up. So we wanted to make sure that there was at least a month period to allow them to do that. Now, on the other side of this does give us a little flexibility because it's the second meeting in May for council. If they choose not to take action on it at that meeting and need some more time, that also still does give them time into the June meetings to continue to discuss this, and we still will be within the contract time of what we have with Blue Sky. Now, obviously, that won't give the next vendor a ton of extra time to prepare themselves for July 1st, but it does give us a little bit of flexibility. I think 3 years ago, if anybody remembers, we were doing a lot of these awards late June, really put a lot of crunch on everybody. So we're trying to get ourselves a little bit of flexibility. We feel like 2.5 months should be enough for vendors to prepare proposals for this.
What day of the week is July 1st this year? Anybody tell me that?
Let me look. Monday.
Okay.
Convenient, right?
Mr. Chair, there's one item in here I had asked about earlier with staff, and there's a line that says, we currently, I'm not sure the exact wording, currently have approximately 80,000 rides per year annually, and that is not factually true. And I think we should change that to reflect something more, either less definitive or more accurate. And that's going out to people who are going to be making a proposal on this. And if we were to say, in the past, we have had approximately 80,000 riders annually, I'd be okay with that. But it is not current. It's far from it. So I would like to see that line changed to reflect something more accurate, or were you able to find that?
I think it's page 14.
Mr. Chair, perhaps something that would satisfy everyone would be to identify a range, from to that. Have been a range of riders, numbers.
That's a good way. I like that.
Might work.
We can do that.
But when it says currently, that is just not factual.
We can adjust.
No, I didn't find, I remember reading it.
We can make that adjustment to the ridership that we saw in 2023 and change it to approximately what that number was.
Well, I mean, again, there's other ways to do it than to just say what we have currently. If we said something like Mary suggested, this system ranges between 40, what we have currently, and as much as up to 80. I mean, I'm not opposed to putting that in there, but the way it's worded is just not, it's not factual. So I just, when it says currently, it's not factual, so.
So going back to the financial report, the 2023 summary, our 2023 ridership was just over 45,000. So we can put 45 to 50,000 approximately in there instead of 80.
I found it too.
What does it say exactly?
It says the Brainerd Crow Wing County public transit system provides approximately 80,000 rides annually to the major population centers of Crow Wing County.
See, if it says in the past has provided, I'd be okay with that. But
So we agree on a range,
Right,
put a range in there.
the range of 45 to
50.
50?
That's fine.
Do we need a motion for that, Jesse?
No, sir. No, that'll be very easy for us to change. I would like to ask one more piece for the TAC before they take action on this. In the past, the TAC committee has actually done the evaluation form and done the thorough review of this. It's very atypical for especially government entities that the boards themselves do the full review of these. Or any of these kinds of proposals, even in the construction and engineering world, it's atypical. Usually the staff does the review and provides a summary or scoring and stuff like that for the board's review. Now, our intention would still to be include all the proposals in that packet, but if the TAC is agreeable to it, to allow staff, our staff, between myself and Crystal and potentially somebody else, to review the proposals that are received, do the scoring, do the analysis and evaluation, and provide a summary of what our findings are through our evaluation and the scoring sheets, as well as the proposals, so that way the TAC can see that. But to save the TAC from having to do that full review.
Will we still be able to see all the bids?
Yes, sir. Yep, we'll include all the proposals with it. We just want to provide you guys with a summary as well as a recommendation from that evaluation, rather than having to go through what I remember reading the last meeting when this came up was a pretty lengthy meeting for everybody to go through this. We'd like to provide that as the staff doing that evaluation for you.
Who would be looking at that?
Staff, Crystal and I.
Who?
Crystal and I, potentially another staff person if need be. Something we haven't determined quite yet, but at least for sure Crystal and I would review those proposals and make sure that, one, that they're responsive, they're responsible, they've included everything within our request for proposals, and then do an evaluation of not only the cost, but of all the different facets of the proposal. And then with that, we would provide all of that summary to the TAC for review.
Mr. Chair, I would have no objection to the suggestion that you go through it and make your notes. But I think the final analysis and the final decision should come with the TAC. And if we are so inconsequential and stupid that following you giving us your ideas without a recommendation, then we really shouldn't be here. The council should just eliminate the committee. I think it's fine that you would go through them. I think it would be fine for you to have a sheet where you'd put down your opinion of pros and cons of any of the potential offerings that may come in. But unless I'm misunderstanding something, the final analysis and recommendation should come from this committee, and it's just bogus to say it does if you give us the recommendation and we are expected to rubber stamp it.
Mr.
I'm
Chair.
just being honest. I'm no way trying to deflect from your importance, your knowledge, and your expertise. But I'm asking why we're sitting here.
Mary, that's not the way I understood it.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah.
All we are going to do is provide the analysis and our staff recommendation. Our expectation is that the TAC is going to provide the recommendation to the council. So
Mr. Chair?
it'll be up to
Mr.
the
Chair.
TAC to make that decision.
Let me go with Jan first, yes.
So, just so I understand, the one that we have to evaluate the 40%, 20%, all that stuff, we will be doing that, correct?
Not if you don't wish to. That'll be our job as staff to go through that checklist of all the things that we need to go through and weigh those factors, and we can give you the scoring. You're welcome to do so as well. I'm not going to say that you're not. But as staff, that's something that, I mean, we're really hired to do that for you. We want to provide you with those results of our review of it and provide that to you. You're welcome to do so, and if that changes your recommendation, but we want to give you that information, so if that helps save some of your effort.
I kind of agree with Mary on this point. I think the TAC should have a little bit more involvement. We got kind of kicked in the teeth with the fare increase, because it didn't come to us to approve it, to make the recommendations to the city council. I think I'm right on that, right, Jeff? So I guess I would rather we follow what Mary had recommended.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Jeff.
As long as I know that the state of Minnesota, MnDOT, agrees that staff can do this, because 3 years ago, I was of the understanding that staff wasn't supposed to evaluate, it was supposed to be exclusive to the transit who recommends to the council. And if I see an email from the state of Minnesota, who are, what do we call our project manager or whatever they are? If they say,
here.
oh, I'm sorry, you didn't get introduced. But if they say yes, that's fine, because my understanding was from former staff that they weren't supposed to evaluate this. This was supposed to be entirely the transit.
Yeah, I'm not sure where that came from.
Entirely.
Maybe that was Andy's interpretation.
I agree. I think Jeff is right on that.
But the thing is, there also needs to be, the issue of conflict of interest. And so you will want to look at, if there's anyone reviewing or making any recommendations that a conflict of interest is signed off on. And if anyone has any connection to any of anyone who submits a proposal, that they remove themselves from the review, from the decision with those proposals. So that's something you want to look at. Whether people sign off, I know with the state, when we review any grant applications, we have to sign a conflict of interest form. And if there's any connections to an applicant, you have to remove yourself.
Right.
To further, I'm sorry, I forgot your name.
Tina,
Tina.
I
Okay.
was your project manager before, so I'm back.
Okay, okay, thank you. Okay, I asked Crystal, and she got a hold of Jean Meyer, who
Yeah.
is your supervisor?
No, she's my coworker.
Coworker, okay. She says if there's, okay, if anyone other than a designated person, which is either Crystal or Jesse, speaks directly regarding a proposed solicitation to a vendor, to a potential vendor, the solicitation is looked at as not adhering to the conflict of interest and non-collusion clauses, having others influence or directing a solicitation would result in the solicitation being canceled and the need to re-solicit, okay? That means go out again. And can result in dispatch and result in disqualifying the potential vendor from submitting a proposal. So if that were to happen, if somebody contacts a vendor from this committee or city hall, outside of our solicitor, which is, who is it, Jesse or Crystal? Which one of you two are?
I believe Chris,
Okay.
excuse me,
so
I think Crystal's
If
listed on
any
there.
of us or city council members or anybody at city hall were to reach out to a vendor and start having any kind of conversation at all about proposing on this RFP, all this can go bye-bye real fast, and they could potentially jeopardize or disqualify themselves from us ever looking at a proposal they might submit. Would that be fair, Tina?
That's correct.
Yeah, so I
And
just,
that's during the solicitation phase, yep.
And I believe that wording is in here. I believe I read that.
well, we do have that in there, but not to this degree, as this is a consequence that's, I read here, if that were to happen. Yes, it is in there what you said. That's why I asked Crystal the question.
Well, Mr. Chair, I remember the last go-around distinctly, and Paul Sandy was at that point city engineer. And he stood right there and he pushed and he pulled and he pushed and he pulled, and he went on and on promoting the current contractor with very little discussion about specifics. It just struck me as a little strange. So I would like to see the committee more involved.
Jesse, did you have
All I'm
something
gonna
else?
say.
I do want to clarify, it feels like it's unclear. So although we were talking about reviewing this and providing scores and the evaluation, that is going to be provided to the TAC. The TAC is the one that's going to make the recommendation to the council.
I think where they're coming from is that they want to be able to score that 40, 20, 20, 20%, just like we did last year.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, if we do it, like, now we get it ahead of time, right? So we can have our scoring done before we get to the meeting?
That's the way we're supposed to do it.
That is the way it was supposed to be done,
And I
correct?
believe that's how it was last year, but not all of us did that, so we had to wait. So you guys will have yours, you'll do yours, we'll do ours, and in that meeting, we'll sit down and we'll hear from everybody, and we'll come up with a decision.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a suggestion to be added to the proposed RFP. Just a thought. Maybe at the end, or a final sentence or two, you could say, what are your ideas? In other words, asking the potential bidder, what are your ideas for more cost effectiveness and to become more customer friendly? Just let them go. Let them say what we might learn something. We might not. But I think it would be interesting to get answers on those two questions, cost effectiveness, customer friendly. Those are two things we all care about. And I think it'd be okay to ask them.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Jan?
I would think, because I understand that they're going to be coming to the TAC, the vendors, will they be coming for us to talk to or no? No, okay. Okay, no. Unless we request. Okay, all right, because I was going to say that's when we could ask that question, but I don't think we should be doing it in a proposal.
Mr. Chair, if I might, any communications that you receive from vendors, are they shared with all the vendors? As it sometimes is done with these types of proposals? Is that part of our rules here you guys got to follow?
Yes. So I don't want to say that every single communication, sometimes it's clarifying a word or something like that, it's inconsequential. But if there's any kind of a clarification where that clarification may affect a different proposer's interpretation of this request, or it might affect how they propose, that is something that we do issue what's called an addendum. And we do send that out to any proposers that may have their hands on that, or wherever we publish it. We do make it known there's a clarification to some piece, but not every piece does get an addendum, I guess I should say.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Jan?
Yeah, I have a question. It's verbiage. I was reading through it, and I see that we got operator, contractor, company, and third-party contractor. Are they all the same?
Yes.
Could we make it kind of the same verbiage?
Yeah, that shouldn't be a big
I
deal.
think yeah, because when I was reading about the operator, I thought, they're not gonna find the operator of the bus. The operator would be the company, right, so.
It does go back and forth a lot, doesn't it?
It does, yep.
Is that something you could clean up easy enough, or?
Yep.
Definitely, yes.
Thank you.
Well, we're just about to get to there. Are we ready to make a motion? Move this forward?
Mr. Chair, I move we recommend the contract that we accept and recommend it with consideration of the changes suggested. Consideration. Didn't say it'd have to be it, just think about it.
I'll second that, Lambert.
Any more discussion?
Yeah, could you be more clear on the considerations suggested, just as that, I mean,
That they
Covered.
would go through it and what they want to discard, maybe make a note, and the next meeting say, we considered this, but felt it wasn't appropriate, or we added it, or just so, we know if we sit here and we think and we make ideas and suggestions, at least they're considered. Otherwise, we might as well stay home.
thank you.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Public forum. Do we have anybody from the public here? Anybody online? Staff reports. Staff reports?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
So I'll just quick start it out. So I referenced this a little bit, but at that next TAC meeting, I believe we're planning for May 9th. Not only are we going to plan to bring the proposals with a staff review included with it, but we are also intending to bring a summary of that, I'll call it the 6-month look back on the service changes in a little bit more of a greater detail, and really let everybody have an idea of what has changed, what assumptions that were made that were correct, not correct, and maybe some potential recommendations that might come from that. Understanding that we have proposals that we have to factor into everything too, but that is our intention, is that at that May meeting to have a lot of those numbers available and some of that analysis for the TAC. It would also be our intention to deliver that same analysis to the Crow Wing County Board, as well as the City of Baxter City Council, and let them have that information and in the same way share that we are reviewing new proposals. And once we have, I guess I'll call it an awarded proposal, that we can finalize some of those recommendations for those boards. So that is my intention for the May 9th meeting. So if you weren't ready for a big meeting on May 9th, buckle up. It's going to be a big one. But I'm hopeful I can have a good amount of information to share. With that, that's really my update. I'll turn it over for Crystal for some of the operations update.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to just update the committee on a few things that are happening since we last met in October. One is that we received our 2024 operating contract from MnDOT. We also received our vehicle selection notice for our 2023 bus order. We're still waiting on receiving a couple buses back, so I think we're still waiting on our 2021 and 2022, or no, it'd be 2020, 2021, and then 2023, because we did not order for 2022, I believe it was. Hopefully, we'll see one of those buses in the fall or sometime at the end of the year, and then we'll be able to dispose of one of the older buses that are requiring us to spend a lot of maintenance costs on. So that's where that is at with the vehicles. The biggest update I need to share with the committee is that the Blue Sky Transit on-site operations manager, Mr. Sandbakken, has unfortunately submitted his resignation effective tomorrow. He is going to be moving on into back into the field where he kind of came from, and his time with us was very good. He did some really good things and turned around a lot of the staff's mentality and set that standard for all of them and really built a good foundation for the next manager that comes on to build off of from there on. He like Jesse had brought the call percentages from 40% up to 100% at times. It's averaging at 94% at all times currently. The on-time performance, which is how often we show up, it just hit 99%, over 99% actually. That's the highest I've ever seen it before. So, and that was all with Aaron's guidance, and he has stayed on top of things, took care of any complaints that came about, was constantly communicative with me, and open and honest and transparent, and it was a good thing to have a good manager in there, and I'm looking forward to them having another good manager in there. At this time, they have not hired one. They did bring in an interim floating manager from one of their locations out in Montana. So her name is Kay, and then Kevin Percy, the assigned general manager, will also again be filling in. Also, unfortunate news is one of the full-time dispatchers submitted his resignation. I believe his last day is February 9th. And then they also had a part-time dispatcher that I didn't get into this update because it did just happen about a day ago. Their part-time dispatcher did resign with essentially no notice. He is done. So they're working on it. They have posted both positions, and they have done some interviews already. So they're being active with that. Some other upcoming projects that I have going on, still working on updating my policies and procedures to the recommendations from that comprehensive plan audit, or the comprehensive audit back in August. I hope to bring those to the next TAC meeting to make that TAC meeting even larger. I think there's about 6 or 7 of them, so it's not too much, just small verbiage changes. Quarterly billing, monthly reporting, and then obviously Jesse and I drafted up that new request for proposal that he just presented to you. And then I have just a quick list of other things that have been going on, and with that, if any members have any questions I can answer. Thank you.
The
Tina?
Transit Spring Workshop will be May 8th and 9th at the Sauk Rapids City Hall.
What can we look forward to if we go to that?
Missing
Well, all the
our
transit
meeting.
systems will be there, and that's kind of their big, this is at the spring workshop, it's where MnDOT really rolls out any changes in policies, procedures, the upcoming grants that are coming out, applications, all of that.
Are you guys going, either of you? Jesse or Crystal?
I will not be able to attend.
Well, that would affect our May 9th meeting.
That's what I'm bringing. Something was sent out, I don't know, last week, Melinda had it.
Yeah, I think the date was sent out just after we had already put together the TAC meeting. Maybe there's a virtual option, or maybe there'll be
I
a
don't think they'll,
PowerPoint provided after.
yeah.
We'll have to sort that out. We'll sort it out.
So number 11 says committee members' reports. Should that be like comments instead? Committee member
Yes,
comments?
can we just do comments?
I have a 17-page written report here I want to go through.
Well,
I'm
You
just
can't.
kidding.
Mr. Chair, I would like to compliment our staff on turning around our budget and doing all the hard work. And sounds like Aaron has helped us a lot, so pass on my regards and my thanks.
May I go?
Yes.
So over the last year, I've struggled with a lot of things that have gone on here and not so much at our transit committee level. We've had some recommendations to make, some things that have happened and mostly revolves around finances, and I think everybody understands that's a big deal. But I oftentimes hear kind of snide comments at council level. And frankly, I don't know, if you haven't got anything good to say, then please don't say anything at all. Because you're not going to try and make things better. You're only making things worse if all you got to do is say some kind of negative comment, some type of criticism about a staff person, a committee, whatever it might be. And frankly, it gets really old really fast, and it tests my patience. And I think I'm just gonna say this. I think I have maintained my composure fairly well when I've heard these things. And it's actually, I hope that this is a new year. Perhaps we can have a new beginning, and I'm looking forward to it. We got potentially a new 3-year contract coming up, and I'm looking forward to that. So let's. It's not February yet, but let's start out the rest of the year on a good note. I'm looking forward to it.
Very good. I have one thing for that meeting on the 9th. If it's going to be long, do we want to move it back a little, start it earlier?
I'd leave that up to the TAC if that's something that would work for you guys.
That is a Thursday, correct?
I believe so.
Is it 2 o'clock okay, or do you want to go back an hour to 1:30, or? Well, how soon prior to that meeting will we get our copies of our scoring and the bids?
For sure by the Monday prior, but hopefully we can get it to you by the Friday so you can enjoy it over the weekend as well.
But, and that should be plenty of time. I would think it'd be plenty of time. So hopefully we'll come prepared.
So, if I may, I do have a couple of perhaps hypotheticals. Last time, 3 years ago, there was 2 proposals. It takes a while to go through them, as anybody knows. And then, what if there aren't any? What do we do?
We would have to do exactly what we did last year, which is extend the solicitation period, I believe. And then we met with the current contractor and requested that they extend their contract out for another 30 days, which they were willing to do.
Okay.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Mr.
Meeting's
Chair,
adjourned.
can I clarify
Jesse
if
has
that's
something.
an adjournment
You got
to
something?
Whoop, wait a minute.
1:30?
Pardon?
Can I clarify if that's adjourned to 1:30 on the
I'm good
9th?
with 1:30.
I'm good with 1:30
Thank you.
1:30 on the 9th.
on the 9th.
Okay,
Things go well with your mother-in-law.
now we're adjourned.
Amen, brother.
Welcome back, Tina.
Yeah, I do too. She
It's hard.
has her moments where she's